Thank you very much for investing your time with Metropole TV this morning. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiaget. This is your economic review. Be part and parcel of our conversations this morning at Metropole TV KE across all your social media platforms. I am a Charles_Kiaget. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Text us 2146. Ogwanga Omoga is in the house this morning. Good. Now, Kenya has received a $1 billion loan equivalent to approximately 107 billion shillings from the World Bank to support its budget by plugging the financial gap that will be created by the declining tax revenue occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic. National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani has termed the loan as the largest assistance Kenya has ever received. World Bank Country Director for Kenya, Felipe Jaramillo, has said the loan will provide resources to help Kenya navigate the current COVID-19 crisis and to cushion the impact of the livelihoods and jobs while supporting the continued operation of essential public services. The World Bank boss has said Kenya secured the financing after having undertaken policy reforms that directly benefit many low-income Kenyan households. CS Yatani said on his Twitter account, and I quote, "The fact that the World Bank does not provide budget support to countries with a weak macro framework is a testimony of the confidence levels of the bank in our new policy reforms." End quote. Now let's leave it there and then jump to another report, therefore, that shows that over the past 10 years, we have lost 328 billion shillings that have come into the economy through donations and welfare. Which therefore begs the question, what is going to be different this time when in just 2 months we have accrued a 190 billion shillings debt just because of the COVID-19 pandemic? That report was released.
Yes.
Was it a surprise to you that our leaders and some rich Kenyans have specifically gone to our donations accounts and said, this is the best place for us to get this money? 328 billion that comes to us in terms of donations and welfare, pretty much gone out of the economy.
Sure.
Ogwang, what is really ailing us when we have a president whose biggest promise was, after 10 years, talk to me about corruption, it will be gone?
Sure. I'm not surprised.
You're not surprised?
It's only a foolish farmer that gets surprised when a pack of hyenas break into their sheep pen and take their sheep. Only a foolish farmer would go and say, oh, I didn't know. But I'm not surprised. The former Chief Justice, Willy Mutunga, I think he would go into history books, and not only history books. I wish we hadn't completed writing scriptures. What Willy Mutunga had said should actually go into scripture.
Yes.
That we are having a bandit economy. And it's a bandit. You can't explain how over a period of less than 8 to 6, 7, 8 months, we have spent 190 billion. So wait and see until we have gone for 2 years. I'm telling you, it will make this research figure of 328 billion look like child's play, because that's what actually we are doing. And this is not only corruption. You see, we have sanitized that word corruption to a point whereby it looks spiritual, it looks innocent, so to speak. That, oh, do you know that Simba is corrupt? Ah, really? Simba is corrupt? Yes. So what would you want to do when you grow up? Ah, I would want to be corrupt, right? We need to call it for what it is. It is stealing. It is looting. It is guys that are not having the best interest of Kenya at heart. It's whereby people are just not humane.
Yes.
And when people are not humane, you'd ask yourself, were these people born by the devil? Especially in such a moment as this, right? And there are a lot of things that are actually making us laugh. From what you're saying, I was actually trying to take notes. That Kenya has undertaken policy reforms that are directly beneficial benefiting more low-income Kenya households.
And that's the reason as to why the World Bank really decided to give us that loan, according to Ukur Yatani.
Have they seen that actually within 2 weeks, only within 2 weeks,
Yes.
some people are homeless?
Would they also come from the perspective where we do know now that the government has gone and done its research and is giving people in the lower income bracket of Kenya,
Yes.
1,000 shillings on a weekly basis? That's around 4,000 bob a month.
What is 1,000 shillings? Of course, I need to compliment, right?
Yes.
That at some point, nusu shari ni heri kuliko shari, hauna shari. Kuna Waswahili walisema hivyo.
Yes.
But let me ask you, you're in Nairobi, right? What is 1,000 shillings? Let us define low income. Is low income an individual that earns less than $1 a day, less than $1 a day? Would we qualify that as low income? So if it's less than $1 a day, so that would mean of 300 shillings. This is someone who spends 300 shillings per week. So I'm giving you 1,000 shillings. But that notwithstanding, whenever government wishes to whitewash certain things, government will come up with phrases that don't even make sense.
Yes.
What is low income? Because some of these things that they are pronouncing themselves, and what is actually Ukur Yatani saying on his Twitter handle, actually is just a joke. Where is the seriousness on the part of government as far as driving this impulse that we can say that we have actually qualified and our standing at World Bank? Guess what? World Bank is not giving us just gifts. These are loans. And some of these loans we will pay and we will need to repay. So actually, government is actually looking at their bottom line, their baseline, meaning that let us make the most out of this situation.
Yes. Does it surprise you that now Ukur Yatani is here celebrating that we have received 100B from the World Bank, when in reality, when he came to this office, it was telling us, look guys, I'm going to correct the mistakes that my predecessor, that is the former Rotich, did. That I'm going to get into little borrowing. We're going to operate on thin as we correct our mistakes that we got ourselves into. Pretty much spending what we don't have. Does it therefore sort of look... Does it become irony that just before you get into your next financial year, which we do know is starting very soon, that you're celebrating 100B as a loan that is pretty much going to plug your budget?
Sure.
Just going to plug your budget.
Sure.
It's not going into development part, so when you say we're going to get into this project. No, you don't have that money. You're borrowing to plug the gaps that you have in your budget.
It's not only ironic. There's an English word that I have in mind, though I don't know how to pronounce it. It's called preposterous. Is it preposterous? There's that, because that English word is one that actually occupies what I'm really thinking.
Yes.
Because if you are going in that we are going to make a lean government, we are going to limit on our borrowing. In less than 3 months, Ukur Yatani has only been in office for less than 3 months. But I also understand there is an aspect of government that is successive. Whatever you have come in office and you have found that it's ongoing, you just steer it. So to that extent, actually, we might not see Ukur Yatani's policy not until the next fiscal year.
Yes,
because
yes.
as at this fiscal year, Ukur Yatani only inherited an existing policy framework that was in place, that was ongoing. So up to now, we might not even, actually I think if I go back to my religious sense, I think I'm too harsh to Ukur Yatani. If I go back to my religious upbringing, I'm like C.S. Matiang'i, when one day he was forced to lie, and he said, no, I was brought up in Christian
by Christian mother.
Yeah, so being brought up as a believer, I think Ukur Yatani is only trying to steer a policy framework that he found in place.
Yes.
We might not even know what Ukur Yatani might come up with until we see what will happen in 2022, so that successively we can look at Ukur Yatani's policy framework from 2021 to 2022. But as at now, we are going on a wrong trajectory.
Yes. So we cap this conversation there
Yes.
for Ogwang now. I mean, we are celebrating here. Fine. We will say good. We did expect that. I mean, the government has gone into tax cuts and all that and trying to cushion the economy. Kenya Rail is not going to collect the much it was supposed to collect. Good. So now you have scored this from the World Bank, fine. But then how are we going to make, is there something that can be done now, Ogwang, so we don't say, oh, see, out of the 100B that we got from the World Bank, we just absorbed 20% of that.
Okay.
What needs to happen now more than ever?
What needs to happen now more than ever is simply this. Everyone is staying at home. The last I checked on TV, we have all these artists saying, oh, please stay at home, please stay at home, please stay at home. So I would want to imagine that everyone is staying at home. Government, there's an aspect of government that is not actively functional.
Yes.
Which means there was money that was appropriated to that extent that we can actually re-divert
Yes.
to other aspects of the economy. That even moving forward, in as much as we equally need to cushion the government's businesses and government's operations, but equally there is money that was advanced. I have seen on the dailies this morning that they are projecting that it will get worse by September. So that
Yes.
means that between now and September, nothing is happening. That money was dispensed with. The little that I know about physical planning, which means that money had been allocated, that we project that this will go into this will go into these needs. In the areas whereby that money is not being used, we should actually redirect aspects of that money
Yes.
to meeting other government operations so that government stays afloat and government can actually check its own spendings.
Yes.
Let me ask you, for the last 9 months, there are no infrastructural projects going on. But we had projected for that. We had allocated resources for that. For the last 3, 6, or 4 months, there are no infrastructural upgrades anywhere.
Yes.
So let me ask you, are we holding that money in abeyance so that we are waiting to a point whereby, oh, we had allocated this money and we just felt, let that just this money be in this account? No. To that extent, we really need to redirect. We can just redirect the money that is, as at now, is still within our system and that is flowing through the infrastructure of government, but we might not necessarily. But of course, I'm talking as an outsider, you know. I don't hold brief for Ukur Yatani. I don't hold brief for the president. I don't hold brief for cabinet.
Yes.
But as an independent observer, the thing that I would actually recommend is, can we look at avenues whereby we had allocated and that money is lying dormant? Yes.
All right. Now, just on the same tempo now, we do know the National Treasury has proposed, therefore, that the inclusion of a 53.7 billion shillings stimulus package in the 2020-2021 fiscal year. In a letter to the National Assembly, the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani has said President Uhuru Kenyatta approved a 53.7 billion COVID-19 stimulus package to support businesses hurt by the pandemic. Now, the stimulus package includes an allocation of 10 billion shillings towards the Kazi Mtaani program that targets to provide labor-intensive jobs to youth across the country. Apart from the stimulus package, the National Treasury has proposed to allocate 26.4 billion shillings towards the newly formed Nairobi Metropolitan Services, and 1.5 billion shillings will be channeled towards the Mukuru Renewal Project, still under the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. Now, Ogwang, there's so many areas that I could go on around how they have reallocated that money therefore. But what stands out is the newly created Nairobi Metropolitan Service,
Sure.
which we do know was a causal factor of Sonko and his bad governance. I'm saying bad governance in quotes. And also now, the question that stands is also how best this economic stimulus package can be utilized. Let's start with us spending 26B on a newly created governance structure.
Sure.
Within how does that make you feel when in reality Nairobi still has an operational government, still has a governor per se?
Sure. It's not actually a new creation, so to speak.
Yes.
It's a continuity in alternative.
Yes.
So that because you guys have shown proof that maybe you're incompetent to the operation of this what do we call this thing that government has? Portfolios. And so these portfolios, because we think that they might overwhelm you,
Yes,
then
yes.
we need them to be taken by someone else. But guess what? Those portfolios notwithstanding, we still have those lying CECs.
Isn't it? Yeah. You don't have to, but they're still there.
They're still there.
The one fired,
You know.
Uhuru didn't say, now because I've created this new
Yes.
docket,
Yes.
you go home.
Go home.
because
No.
Your services are pretty much rendered useless.
It's functional ministries.
Yes.
Right? So
Yes.
if they are functional ministries, it would defy logic and common sense. And I like where you said bad governance in quotes. It's not even bad governance in quotes. It's just incompetence.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
As a leader, you cannot actually relinquish or abdicate authority. Only idiots do that. Because actually, the moment people had gone to vote for you, that was a vote of confidence on your part and your competence. So when you come back 2 years later and you say, I would wish to relinquish some of these service areas, and I would wish to relinquish some of these responsibility areas, that on your part is incompetence. But that notwithstanding, even the way we are reallocating close to 26.4 billion, and how that money is being wired is the prioritization of that money is actually upside down. Because we are trying to allocate, according to what you have said,
Yes.
10 billion, of course that one is on economic stimulus, but on the metropolis they are saying that 1.5 billion on the Mukuru
Renewal project. Yes.
4.55 billion will go to leasing of vehicles. So let me ask you, we are trying to lease vehicles at 4.45 billion. Let me ask you, what happened to the line ministries that were actually functional and operational? And that's the challenge. Yes? It's not that Major General, this gentleman from
Ali, isn't it?
Major General Ali, it's not that he's coming and
Yes.
he's putting in place an entirely new outfit. The outfit already existed. It's only that it's an alternative of that outfit. And the gentleman already operates from an already established infrastructure.
Yes.
He operates from KICC. It's not that we are building him a house. So let me ask you, and look at how the prioritization actually beats us.
Yes.
4.55 billion and then 1.35 in enhancement and operation, and then 100 million to help in job creation.
So for you, that is the talking point. Just
That's
the
a joke.
priority.
That's
Yes.
a joke.
Yes.
And you don't need to be a scientist to see that these people, either our prioritization is gone amok or someone is still looting. Because why do we need to lease vehicles at 4.55 billion while the line ministries still are functional? They are still existing. Why can't we just redirect those vehicles from those line ministries?
Lastly, then, for Ogwang this morning before we step out. Now, the National Cereals and Produce Board is set to release 7 million bags of space at its silos to private operators. This is part of a raft of reforms that the government has effected on the NCPB. Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Peter Munya aside, the release is designated storage space to private sector will proceed speedily and completed by December 2020. Munya said the Agriculture and Food Authority, in collaboration with the counties, will from September this year undertake the registration of farmers, dealers and the licensing of primary warehouses. Now, the newly formed Warehouse Receipt Council will be responsible for warehouse trading in the commodity exchange. Munya further said government shall henceforth, says, the setting of prices of farm inputs as well as the importation of maize, and instead allow the private sector to bridge the existing maize deficit. Now, talking point this morning is that will the government's exit from the importation of maize solve the current problems associated with the commodity? How will this help solve the cartel issue, which has been mentioned as the biggest challenge in price control wars in the Kenyan market? CS Munya,
Yes.
looks like a guy who's throwing punches here all over. He's in the media more often than not. Is saying that he wants to make sure that the private sector has a bigger say
Sure.
in whatever happens in terms of agriculture. in the economy. Do you think that is what is going to help unlock the farmers' fortunes in the country, as opposed to the government being the watchdog, the control of exactly what happens in the economy? Who has, I would say, goodwill at heart for the Kenyan farmer? Is it the private player? Is it the government?
That in itself is a joke. Because the CS is coming across as someone who is not, I wouldn't say informed.
Yes.
Because government does not produce anything. It's the private sector that does business with government.
Yes.
So at whichever level you look at it, be it agriculture, be it medical, be it security, government does not produce anything.
Yes.
Maize that comes in through private entities. Fertilizer that comes in through private entities. Government is a non-profit making organization.
Yes.
They are not in the interest of production.
Yes.
No government on earth is in the interest of production. C.S. Munya should know that. He's actually a very accomplished lawyer, so to speak. So for him to come back and say that now we want to activate a private sector, no. And it's even a joke to the extent that they're going and coming up with some very fictitious things like warehouse receipt authority. The entire structure of how maize supply chain is conducted, if we are just saying we have warehouse receipt performance, we don't need an authority. Having an authority would equally require that we put in place infrastructure that will run this authority all through 47 counties.
Yes.
Do we have that? And it's even a joke that even in times like this, we are going out to register farmers. Have we not registered farmers? Have we not registered suppliers? Have we not registered dealers and people who are agents? How have we been going about even procuring maize from farmers? Even to a time as now, you want to tell me that we don't have some of these databases? So the entire conversation, and the more these people come out to speak, the more you're looking at them like, wait a minute. Are we that level? Are we at that level of incompetence that as a people,
Yes.
let me tell you, today there is a process, there's a laid down procedure. You cannot just wake up today that, hey, my name is Simba Elijah Charles. I want to supply NCPB with maize. You will not. There's a process. You'll need to go through. They will come, they will assess, they will do all that thing. Why then do we need a warehouse receipt authority?
Pretty much, isn't it? Now, the other question there is, do you think giving the private, the player, much more authority on exactly what goes on around the agriculture will get rid of cartels, which has been the biggest issue?
Who are the cartels? The cartels are the private institutions that are in cahoot
Yes.
with the administration.
Yes.
That is the cartel. That the administrator, the person who sits in government, the
Yes. person
person who okays, okay, we're going to get that tender, we're going to get that supplier, we're going to get that dealer. That, the person who decides that is government. Those three entities are private.
Yes.
And those private entities are well established in the system. So there's no say that we are going, at this time, we are serious about getting out. Sonko tried that. Sonko tried. Actually, Sonko came into Nairobi by saying, I'm going to get rid of cartels. It's evident that cartels have finally gotten rid of Sonko. The only cartel that exists is when we are sincere and genuine. That
Yes.
I'm going into public service for the well-being of my people, for the well-being of my nation.
Yes.
That is the only cartel to deal with. The cartel is not that private entrepreneur, because that entrepreneur, if we have ambitions that are not well guided, if we have ambitions that are not founded on morals and ethics, guess what? Then we will actually be using the institutions that are put there for our own benefit. To that extent, I become a cartel. I might begin as a very innocent altar boy, and I might begin as a very innocent religious person. But if I meet the other person at that other end that asks, if I give you this tender, how much will I make? To that extent, cartel begins.
Yes.
Because I will need to make more so that I can give you a kickback. The entire conversation rises and falls on this thing. are we really serious as a people in public service? And the public service is, do I want the best for my people? Any person who is guided by that would actually, 50, 60 years ago, ought to have come up with, hey, we need to get the registry of people who will be supplying maize to government. And I can tell you for free, there is that list. You cannot go and supply. Try it. They have boards, cereal something something boards, Kenya beans growers something something suppliers. They are there. So this thing that now we are trying to put the entire infrastructure in place is only creating avenues for further looting. For further looting. I don't really think that we needed a warehouse receipt authority. That's a joke. Even the name itself, it's a joke. Would you need an authority that manages storekeeping? You wouldn't. You wouldn't. That makeshift already exists, might exist under other areas of interest, but exist under other mandates under the law, but it exists.
Very much. All right. But today I just want us to end our show like this. I know you're going live today.
Yes.
Good. Just a minute. What are we doing? What do we expect for all those people who want to join you today?
We want to sensitize every entrepreneur to begin appreciating intellectual property. That intellectual property, and one of the reasons why it has not been appreciated, especially amongst emerging entrepreneurs, is that entrepreneurs have never started looking at intellectual property as a raw material, as an enabler, as an alternative resource. That today if someone wants to go about entrepreneurial venture, more often than not, we don't even factor the roles that intellectual property plays. So we are always looking at intellectual property as that thing that protects me, that thing that comes to secure. But if we can begin to really appreciate intellectual property as an enabler, something that enables your inadequacies as an entrepreneur, do you know that today, from whichever angles an individual approaches entrepreneurship from, regardless of how long you've been in entrepreneurship, you can take advantage of existing infrastructures that are there, and you can compete globally without incurring any unnecessary costing. Because all of us, we have intellectual property forms that are dormant. And this evening, we wish to create that awareness that every entrepreneur, as much as we are serious about creating and driving our markets and driving our products, we can actually leverage on the strength and ability of intellectual property.
Pretty much. What time is it going down?
7 p.m. and it's international.
Don't miss. We take a short break. Once we come back, Stephanie Waswa is going to tell you what you need to do now to just get fit right there in your house.